in the system, our immune system, this lymphatic and immune, we learned about lymph, the capillaries, how they are running almost side by side with capillary beds, okay? And then we began to talk about the cells of this system, and we mentioned like natural killer cells, the dendritic, all these different types of cells. And remember, these are cells that are getting produced in the bone marrow from that huge stem cell, and these are giving rise to these white blood cells. We left off at this point Tuesday because a lot of times when we hear that term immune system, we tend to have this, I don't know, like idea, this picture in our head of, you know, this whole thing like really fighting off all these pathogens. That's not necessarily the case. One of the things that I tried to point out, our body has 3 lines of defense. The very first is going to be the skin, the mucous membranes that are lining all of these openings to the exterior environment. The second line of defense, which is going to act the same every time, is simply where there is a breach to the outside environment, and we use those white blood cells that are already present. For example, the white blood cells that get formed and migrate out of the bloodstream into the connective tissues, such as those that are with the mucous membranes, such as the connective tissue that's under the skin, all right? And they just simply keep wandering. Then they can, like if there's a breach to the external environment, they simply kind of rush to the area and they begin to fight pathogens that are trying to invade the body. Their job will be the same every time. It doesn't change, all right? The response that we get is always the same. It never changes. You will see that you'll get like inflammation and fever. This is the same across the board, no matter what. When we have to have our immune system kick in, note what I just said. When our immune system kicks in, it hasn't kicked in up to this point. We are now in our third line of defense. The third line of defense is our immune system. We're going to create memory. We are going to have to get specific. That means at this point, one of those macrophages, for example, that rushed to the site of the breach, and because the cells that were present could not overcome the pathogen, they now consume a little piece of that pathogen. They put it through their plasma membrane. They go to their nearest lymph node and they present it to a T cell. This is now immunity. We now need the T cells and the B cells so that we can create a product to go fight this antigen. So this is now our immune system. It has gotten very specific. It will act the same way if the body is ever invaded by that pathogen again. Other than that, that memory cell that got created simply goes and sits in a lymph node. That's it. They don't ever do anything again until we're invaded by the same pathogen that it had to mount an attack against. All right? This process that's going to take place when we encounter a pathogen and it has made it past that external barrier, which is my skin, okay? If it has made it past that barrier, if the cells that were already present, wandering around, cannot get rid of it. In other words, those macrophages that will become like a phagocyte and take it in and try to kill it, if they cannot overcome the number of the pathogens, okay, we now have to move to the other lines of defense. So, if it makes it past my first line of defense, my second line of defense comes into play. This is the point where those white blood cells that are simply wandering around in the tissues, in the connective tissues, especially after this first barrier, okay? When we have an invasion, meaning something breached us to the outside world, there's a lot of things that begin to happen from these cells that are wandering around, as well as chemicals that are put off by the blood. Okay? One of the things that we're going to see, these neutrophils are very prominent wandering around in the tissues. Do you guys remember these as a monocyte? Okay? So these cells that are wandering around, okay, if they encounter something, they simply want to ingest it and kill it. That's it. Okay? Use their lysosomes. They're doing that 24/7. They have a specific lifespan. We're going to get them created in the bone marrow. They're going to migrate from the blood vessels into these tissues, and they simply wander. And as they encounter something, engulf it, use their lysosomes to destroy it. They're doing it all the time. When we get breached, they're still going to do it. They're going to now rush to the area of the breach. So those cells, when we have a breach to the outside environment, they actually can release chemicals. Those chemicals send off signals to bring in more neutrophils, bring in more monocytes, so that they can increase in number and be able to consume, meaning phagocytize, whatever it is that tries to invade. Now let's think about this for a second. We breach ourselves to the exterior environment. I don't know. Let's say that while shaving or something, you nick yourself. Okay? What happens? We tend to, like, you know, maybe put a piece of little tissue over it or something. Do you ever think about what it is in that environment around that nick that's trying to invade you? Most of the time, no. You don't think about it because this system keeps it in check. I personally think about it, okay? Like, you know, okay, this is just the way it is, okay? So I'll just be right there. I don't know. Let's say in the shower while shaving, you nicked yourself. What kind of germs and stuff are around in your bathroom?
All germs.
Yeah. Okay. I think about that. All right. Seriously. And I'll know that if there was a breach, that this is what the cells are trying to get to. Okay. Most of the time, we don't even think twice about it. So these cells, by doing the job that they do, they are getting to take care of the issue. The chemicals that they are going to put out, not only will the chemicals call up more of those monocytes to come help, they will also be putting out chemicals that are, like it says, they're acting like a killing zone. So that area around the point of the breach, they're secreting stuff such as the hydrogen peroxide, the hypochlorite, and hopefully that will kill enough of the bacteria. Do you think there's enough bacteria out here in this outside environment for us to be concerned about? You're walking around every day, touching, sniffing, rubbing your eyes, rubbing your nose, eating. Do you ever think about those bacteria that are all around you to this outside world?
Well, I think it depends on like where you are. If you're in like here in a normal environment where like we kind of grew up and our body's acclimated to, probably doesn't make such a big difference. But if you go to another part of the country where things are different, and then you can actually be more susceptible to the diseases and things in that environment.
Exactly. Because if you look at that, this means, well, it's like people tend to say, that your body has built up an immunity. Yes and no, okay? Your body does adjust to its environment. But if we were to go to another country, for example, and be exposed to some of the stuff that's there, we could actually get very sick, and vice versa. Okay? So if this system is, it's very helpful, okay? We're very fortunate in this country, okay? And we do have this ability, but we are surrounded 24/7.
On the previous slide, it said that it acts like the superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorite. So do we actually produce those chemicals, like our body makes that?
Yes, our bodies are going to make chemicals very similar.
Similar to that, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and they're going to, when it says create the killing zone, that's what they try to do. They try to have, like if you've got the area of the breach, as those cells come in from each direction and they get close to the area of the breach, they're going to release their chemicals and hopefully around the area of the breach be secreting them so that if something